Germany, 1922. The rural farmlands of Bavaria stretched endlessly, a patchwork of fields, forests, and small villages where life was governed by tradition, hard work, and silence. The First World War had ended only a few years earlier, and the country was still in turmoil. Poverty, political instability, and a sense of unease shadowed daily life. In the middle of this uneasy peace stood Hinterkaifeck, a small, isolated farmstead located between the towns of Ingolstadt and Schrobenhausen. The farmhouse was remote, half a kilometer from the nearest road, surrounded by dense woods. From afar it looked like any other Bavarian farm, with its livestock, barns, and family home. But in 1922, this ordinary farmhouse became the site of one of the most horrifying and enduring mysteries in German criminal history. The story of the Hinterkaifeck murders is not just about brutality. It is about fear, suspicion, secrets, and the unsettling possibility that the killer may have been closer than anyone imagined. The farm was home to 6 people. Andreas Gruber, 63 years old, the patriarch of the family. He was known as a stern, stubborn, and sometimes cruel man. Rumors swirled that he had a violent temper, and many in the community disliked him. Cecilia Gruber, 72 years old, Andreas's wife. Quiet, dutiful, and long-suffering, she stood by her husband despite whispers of abuse. Victoria Gabrielle, 35, their widowed daughter. Her husband Karl had died in World War I, leaving her with 2 children to raise. Victoria was well liked in the community, but her life was shadowed by scandal. Cecilia Gabrielle, Victoria's daughter, just 7 years old. Bright, energetic, and talkative, she loved school and had many friends. Joseph Gabriel, only 2 years old, the youngest member of the household. His parentage was the subject of gossip. Some believed he was the illegitimate son of Victoria and her father Andreas, a claim that shocked even in rumor. Maria Baumgartner, 44, a maid. She had just been hired and arrived at Hinterkaifeck on March 31, 1922. Her first day on the job, and tragically, her last day alive. The Gruber family lived in relative isolation. Neighbors often described them as withdrawn, perhaps even unfriendly. The rumors of incest between Andreas and Victoria only deepened the community's unease. Though officially charged years earlier, Andreas had served time in prison for incest, yet after his release the whispers never stopped. In the weeks leading up to the massacre, the Grubers noticed a series of strange and unsettling events. Andreas discovered footprints in the snow leading from the nearby forest to the farm, but disturbingly, there were no footprints showing anyone leaving. It was as if someone had walked to Hinterkaifeck and stayed. The family heard strange noises in the attic, footsteps and shuffling, though searches revealed nothing. Tools began to disappear, and a set of house keys went missing. Even more unnerving, Andreas found a Munich newspaper on the property that no one in the family had purchased. Neighbors later reported that the Grubers spoke of these events with unease. Some urged Andreas to contact the police, but the old man, known for his stubbornness, dismissed the idea. Still, a sense of dread was settling over Hinterkaifeck. On the evening of March 31, the killer struck. Investigators later pieced together the sequence of events. One by one, the family members were lured into the barn. Perhaps they were drawn outside by a noise, or maybe by the killer calling for help. First Andreas, then Cecilia, then Victoria, and finally little Cecilia were led into the barn and bludgeoned with a mattock, a heavy farming tool similar to a pickaxe. The blows were brutal, crushing skulls with terrifying force. Inside the house, young Joseph was sleeping in his crib. The maid Maria had retired to her room. Both were murdered as well, struck down in cold blood. 6 victims, all killed in a single night. For days the murders went unnoticed. Life in the countryside was slow, and it wasn't unusual not to see the Grubers for a few days. But suspicions grew when little Cecilia failed to show up for school. Neighbors also noticed that the family was not seen at church, something unusual for Victoria. The mailmen noticed letters piling up. The farm animals, though alive, seemed restless, and no smoke rose from the chimney. On April 4, neighbors decided to investigate. What they found inside the barn was a scene of horror. The bodies of Andreas, Cecilia, Victoria, and young Cecilia were stacked on top of each other, covered with hay. Inside the house, Josef lay dead in his crib, and Maria was found in her room. But the most chilling discovery was that the killer had remained on the property for several days after the murders. The livestock had been fed, meals had been eaten, bread had been baked in the kitchen oven. Smoke had been seen rising from the chimney. The murderer had lived at Hinterkaifeck while the dead lay only feet away. The local police launched an investigation, but it quickly became a nightmare of confusion, mismanagement, and dead ends. The crime scene was contaminated almost immediately. Curious neighbors and townspeople walked through the barn and the house, disturbing evidence. Authorities at the time lacked modern forensic techniques, and vital clues were lost. Still, some details emerged. The mattock used in the murders was found hidden inside the house. The blows to the victims' heads were precise and deliberate. Little Cecilia had not died immediately. She had survived for hours, pulling out clumps of her own hair in terror before succumbing to her injuries. The police questioned dozens of suspects, but no one could be tied definitively to the crime. Over the years, several theories emerged. Some believed a disgruntled neighbor had committed the murders, perhaps out of anger or jealousy. The Grubers were not well liked, and Andreas had a reputation for hostility. Another theory focused on Victoria's complicated relationships. She was rumored to have had a relationship with a local man named Lorenz Schlittenbauer. Some speculated he was Josef's real father. If so, did jealousy or anger drive him to murder? Schlittenbauer himself discovered the bodies, and some claimed he behaved suspiciously at the scene, moving bodies and searching the house. At first, police considered robbery, but the valuables and money in the house were untouched, suggesting theft was not the motive. Some believed a drifter or ex-soldier committed the crime. Germany after World War I was full of displaced, traumatized men, but again no evidence supported this theory. Perhaps the darkest theory was that the crime was connected to the incest rumors. Was someone seeking revenge for the disgrace Andreas had brought on his family? Even decades later, the Hinterkaifeck murders continue to fascinate researchers, historians, and true crime enthusiasts. In 2007, students at the German Police Academy re-examined the case with modern profiling techniques. They concluded that the killer was likely someone close to the family, someone who knew the farm well and who had a personal motive. Yet, without DNA evidence or preserved forensic samples, the case remains officially unsolved. The farmhouse itself was demolished in 1923, just a year after the murders. But the story of Hinterkaifeck never faded. Books, documentaries, and films have all explored the case, each trying to answer the question, who killed the Grubers? To this day, theories abound. Some believe Lorenz Schlittenbauer, the neighbor, was guilty. Others point to unknown intruders, and some whisper that perhaps the true killer was never even questioned. This never-ending and confusing question. But what makes the Hinterkaifeck murders so haunting is not just the brutality, it is the silence. 6 lives ended in a night of terror, and for more than a century, the truth has remained buried. The Hinterkaifeck murders are more than just a crime story. They are a reminder of how fragile safety can be, how secrets can fester in silence, and how some mysteries may never be solved. A quiet farmhouse in Bavaria, a family with dark secrets, a killer who walked in from the woods and vanished forever. The case remains one of Germany's greatest unsolved mysteries, a shadow over a small village that has never lifted.